Okay, so now we're going to learn how to subtract polynomials now that we've learned how to add them. Okay, so that's our learning target. I'd like you to take a look at this picture. How many ounces does that bowl on the left hold, do you think? Okay, so our essential question today is, how do I subtract polynomials? Before we get into that, let's talk about opposites in math. And really, when I'm thinking about opposites, I'm thinking about additive inverses. In other words, opposites when you're adding. So, what's the opposite of 7? The opposite of 7 is -7. Okay? The reason for that is if you put those together, okay, if you add these together, you get 0. Okay? So in order for them to be opposites, they should add together to be 0. Okay? So if I have -3, the inverse of that would be +3, right? The reason for that is if I add those together, I get 0, right? Same thing if I have -4x. The inverse of that, or the opposite of that, is +4x. So just change the sign. If I add these together, I get 0x, which is just 0, okay? So, you could have 132xy. Well, the opposite of that would be -132xy. And again, if you added those together, you get 0. These are called inverses of each other, or opposites. And one thing that's true is when we add the opposite, you get 0. So we just talked about that. But for example, 5 minus 3. Now, these are not opposites, but you know that this is 2, right? 5 minus 3 is 2. Well, we can also rewrite this in a different way. We can rewrite it as 5 plus the opposite of 3, which would be -3. So these two statements mean the same thing. I will still get 2 here, okay? So 5 minus 3 is the same as 5 plus a -3, okay? If you don't believe me, let's take a look. So I'll use my graphing calculator here. 5 minus 3, 2, okay? 5 plus -3. Notice still 2. These are the same thing. So this is a different way to write it. So what we're going to do is, in today's things, we already know how to add polynomials. So what we're going to do when we're talking about subtraction is we're actually going to rewrite it as an addition problem and then use the things that we already know how to do. This will make our life a little bit easier, okay? So we'll have to rewrite it, and then we can just use the things that we've already learned. So how do we subtract polynomials? So the first thing we will do is we are going to add the opposite, okay? And you'll see what I mean by that here in a moment. But then notice steps 2, 3, and 4 are the exact same as adding. So these actually, in purple, these steps right here were what we did to add polynomials. So really we're just adding one step here, and then we're good to go, okay? So let's try this. How do we subtract polynomials now? Okay, so I have those steps in the upper right-hand corner there. So the first thing we're going to do is add the opposite. So what this means is you want to copy this polynomial. Let me show you how to do this. You're going to copy this one exactly. This first polynomial. Okay, now when we say add the opposite, everything from this point this way, okay, is now going to be changed. We're going to change this to addition, right? We said we're going to add the opposite, okay? So I'm going to change this to a plus sign. Okay, now I'm going to change all of these terms to their opposites, okay? So -5x is going to become +5x. You can write plus here if you want. You don't necessarily need it, but I'm going to put it in there just so you notice that that's different. And now I'm going to change that plus sign to a minus sign. Okay, so I've just noticed everything here in blue, I've changed the sign on. That's all I did. I changed this to a plus, this to a plus, this to a minus. Okay? Okay, so that's all we're going to do. Now, step 2. So that's step 1. We just add the opposite. I've now rewritten this as an addition problem. Now we already know how to do this. So now I'm going to drop the parentheses and combine some like terms. Okay? So now I am going to just rewrite this without the parentheses. Now, if you want to put another that other plus sign here, you can. You don't need 2 plus signs in a row, so I'm just going to not write that. Okay, and now we're going to combine like terms and then make sure our answer is in standard form. So I'm going to make sure my answer is in standard form, I'm going to start with the highest degree terms. So that would be my squares here. I'm going to put these together. So let's see, negative 10x squared plus 5x squared. So negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5. Okay. So this is going to become negative 5x squared. So I've just combined these. They've now become that. Now let's see. Next would be x's. I only see 1, so I'm just going to copy that one, minus 3x. Okay. And then I have these two. Okay. 7, positive 7 minus 9. So 7 minus 9, negative 2. So I have negative 2. Now, my answer needs to be in standard form. Remember, that is our last step. Answer in standard form. If you start with the highest degree and work your way down, it should already be. So this has a degree of 2, then 1, then 0. So yeah, we're in standard form. So we're okay. I don't need to rearrange anything. This is my answer. And I'm done with that. You've just subtracted polynomials. Okay? All right. So let's try this. Let's try this again. Okay. So step 1, I'm going to copy, add the opposite. That means copy the first polynomial that's in parentheses. Now, after you write this, close that parenthesis on the first polynomial, everything else is now going to change signs, right? So this I'll change to a different color so we're aware of that. So this will become a plus sign. This is going to be negative. That's a positive 5m to the 4th, so this will become negative. It's easy to forget this. Don't. Otherwise, your answer will be wrong. So don't forget that. This will become positive 5m squared, and this will become negative 8. Remember, this is called adding the opposite. Okay, so this right here is the opposite. This whole thing right here is the opposite of this. Okay, so that's another way to subtract, is to add the opposite. Okay, drop our parentheses. Whoops. Let's drop our parentheses. So 7m to the 4th minus 2m squared plus negative 5m to the 4th plus 5m squared minus 8. Okay, now you're going to combine like terms. So start with your highest degree ones and work your way down. So let's see, 7m to the 4th and negative 5m to the 4th. So 7 minus 5 is 2. Okay, now I've got squares. So negative 2 plus 5. If you're not sure, type that into your calculator. Negative 2 plus 5. That's 3. Okay, so I get positive 3m squared. And I only have one thing left, and that's this negative 8. So minus 8. Okay. Now my answer, check to make sure it's in standard form. It is. And we're good. Okay. I hope this is making some sense. Again, these are your steps, but It's really only one new thing. So just be careful when you're recopying. You don't mess anything up. Let's try one more. Okay, if you're feeling confident, you could try this by yourself. Otherwise, here we go. So I'm going to, let's see here. Let's copy the first. Now I'm going to change the sign on everything else. So this will be plus, add the opposite, right? So this becomes plus, and now minus, or negative x squared. Again, don't forget this. This is a positive, it's not written, so it's easy to forget. Plus 5x to the third, minus 9, minus 11x squared. Okay, now I'm going to drop the parentheses, okay, and combine like terms. Now, some of you might do the eraser here, but I'm just going to recopy just to make sure. Okay. 9x squared minus 3x plus 7 plus negative, x squared plus 5x to the third minus 9 minus 11x squared. So this is kind of a big one, but that's okay. Just take your time. All right. So our highest degree term is this right here. So I'm going to start with that. So I don't see any other x to the third powers. So 5x cubed. Okay, continuing with combining like terms, I've got 9x squared, negative x squared, and negative 11. Okay, remember this is really a negative 1. If you want to put that in there, you can. It's a hidden 1. So you have 9 minus 1 minus 11. Okay. 9 minus 1 minus 11 is negative 3. Okay, so this would be negative 3x squared. Okay. So now I have negative 3x. I don't see any other x's, so minus 3x. Cross that out. And now I have 7 and negative 9. So 7 minus 9 is negative 2. Okay. Now, lastly, I want to make sure that my answer is in standard form here. Highest degree to lowest, it is. So I am good. And that is my answer. That's about as complicated as you're going to see. So if that makes sense, you should be good. Okay, once again, your steps to do this. Subtracting polynomials. Add the opposite. Be careful when you're doing this. Copy the first one, change it to addition, and then make sure you change the signs on everything else in the second polynomial. Drop the parentheses, combine like terms, and then don't forget to make sure your answer is in standard form at the end. Okay? That's it. And your assignment is subtracting polynomials worksheet. Don't forget to write that in your student assignment plan book, and check it off as after you finish it and submit it. All right, good luck.